Look, when it comes to on-prem or cloud, this is not black or white. All right. If you were to ask me, well, what's the best, it's actually the gray, because when you combine the power of on-prem and its value add and cloud, you end up with this really powerful solution.
Welcome to the Trend Detection Podcast, powered by Siemens. And now your host, Niall Sullivan.
Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of the Trend Detection Podcast. Today, I'm joined by a very familiar face and voice, Richard Eller, my colleague all the way in Australia. How are you, Richard?
Yeah, good day, Niall, from down under. Yeah, pretty good. Looks like you've done some damage there. What's going on?
Yeah. For that, well, people won't be able to see this, but I have I've had an operation on my wrist, so I'm doing podcasting one-handed, which is easy as it happens to do. So not going to affect my presenting, hopefully today. Today's subjects is a slightly different one, because with Senseye and predictive maintenance, we're often talking about cloud and the benefits of cloud, and cloud's great and cloud's the be all and end all, but actually it's not. And we're going to go into that today and talk a little bit about on-premise and how it doesn't have to be one or the other. One can certainly benefit the other, and you can use both in tandem to get the results that you want at scale, so unlocking the value at scale. So have I summarised that okay, Richard, from your point of view? Because I know you sort of brought the topic to the table. So, was there anything else in there you wanted to add to that?
No, Niall, I think you really hit the nail on the head there. When it comes to deployment and when we talk about generating value, and we start talking about introducing new products, customers, especially in the industrial space, will always question, why should I do something different? Why should I move my data into a cloud platform? Why can't I just leverage the large amount of money I've spent on my plant that's got very high-speed processors in? I've got my historians, I've got my condition monitoring here. What's the real value of pushing my data out and getting it analyzed and reviewed in a different way? And so what I've seen, I've been in automation now for over 20 years, and I come from a coalface PLC drive background, and it is in your DNA to challenge why we should do things differently when these people that have been coding for a long time have spent a lot of amount of energy in design and deployment, and making sure that they come up with a program that really looks after the application. And so now when we come along and say, listen, we can see things that you couldn't see before, and that kind of sometimes gets people on the back foot, because they're like, well, I know my machine very, very well. What are you going to do that's different to what we do here on-prem? And so that's the topic for today is what do we do on-prem? What do we do in cloud? And really, what is the best solution moving forward to make sure that you're getting the most value? Now, that's essentially the topic today. I don't want to give my insights until the very end as to what I feel is the best. I'd love to just kind of go through this journey of customers that I've spoken to, challenges that we've faced, and talk about when it was better to stay on-prem and when it was best to only go cloud, or when there was a combination.
Yes, let's start with that then and break this down a little bit. So if we start with on-premise analytics, so in the context of sort of industrial operations, what are the benefits of on-premise analytics?
Yeah, so essentially, this is why factories get built. All right, so they are meeting the needs of whatever they in the food and bev, battery, pharmaceuticals, whatever vertical they are in. There are products and PLCs and OEM equipment specifically designed to do a function and make the widgets that the customers need. And automation has, I mean, absolutely awesome over the last 20 years in how much easier it has been to visualize data as opposed to just having blinking LEDs on a template, or how much easier it has been to actually automate code, and you didn't have to write code in C++ or SEL, and it's really become easier at an application level to basically derive process and rules-based condition monitoring. And so this is what all of our customers are doing. That's their focus. Their focus is not to bring their data into cloud to do something else. Their focus is to manufacture widgets. And so this is what we talk about, is the evolution of Industry 4.0, and especially in the condition monitoring space. So when we talk about on-prem, we are really talking about the physical assets that are on site, be it your motor, be it your decel, be it your water cleaning, or whatever your application is. That is actually where all of the logic sits, and that's so now we have to come and talk about, what can we bring to the table that you're not doing on-prem. And it's important. So what do we do on-prem? Traditionally, everything that's rules-based condition monitoring, if this, when that, those is traditional edge processing. We have seen the evolution of model-based AI, where they've taken an OEM might know their machine so well that they go and write model-based AI that runs on-prem and is operating at a high spectrum. Okay, so this is looking for anomalies or deviations at a millisecond time slice. Very useful for monitoring grid, and you're looking at frequency or transients in the grid. Very handy if you're looking for voltage deviations on drives, or there is definitely use cases for that high speed AI on-prem, and we can kind of go through a lot of examples there. But essentially, when we talk about and define on-prem, this is what comes out of the box. This is what makes the widgets. And then the next layer up is when you go into the visualization. So the first layer usually for factories, for visualization, they'll go into dashboards. And then they'll go into OEE, where we're looking at, the optimum equipment efficiency, where they get very baseline data from the machines. And then they might go and implement some rules-based condition monitoring on-prem, which might be in a SCADA, it might be in some kind of overarching controller, but that stays on-prem. And now, with the power of cloud and and all of the benefits that come from being able to adapt and change and the way that you are actually processing and monitoring data, cloud is now very much a big augmenter for what you are doing on-prem.
Yes, so I guess the question, Richard, is where does, on-premise as benefits up to a point, and then maybe cloud takes over. So what is that sort of tipping point where maybe on-premises does enough, but it can't do that next bit, maybe the scale part as an example?
Yeah, you see this a lot with, global organizations. All right, so it's very important that large companies that have companies in many regions, in different countries, they now need to see insights across the board. All right, so they need to actually bring their data out of the OT environment and start bringing it into IT infrastructure. So this trigger to get out of OT to IT is a huge decision for customers. I can't estimate, or I can't. This is a real challenge for customers as to why should I go into the IT environment? What value are you going to bring there? But to your question, is what is the tipping point? The tipping point is when you have run out of value in what you can do on-prem. And this is happening now quite a lot. Okay, so new machines are coming on board, and we've got a lot more data. But to really leverage that data on-prem is difficult. To leverage that data to really look at different sites and compare and really leverage big data, you have to get out of the edge environment. So the trigger is usually when a customer is getting frustrated because they've got the data, but they're not leveraging the value of it. And this is when we step in and we say, listen, let's keep doing what you are doing, all right, and supplement it with this, okay? And this is very much part of a kind of an industry 4.0 roadmap. You can't go to cloud before you've done edge. There's no doubt about that. This is you don't just want to push all your data to a cloud environment and you haven't pre-processed your data. You're not deriving what you need to on-prem. So firstly, the first thing that keeps everything on-prem is when you've got, mission critical control. If that motor trips, people's lives are going to be at risk within the next 2 minutes. You've got to keep that on-prem. You have to. You can't rely on a cloud-based system to monitor it and push back. So unless you've got many different redundancies in there, which we do in cloud, but I always say if you've got a mission critical application and the last, for example, you don't want an emergency stop going to a machine via the cloud. That's the last thing you want. You can have it as a secondary, but you've got these raw protections that sit on-prem, and that's that we must never deviate from, and that's the power of on-prem. We use the controllers for what they do, the PLC controllers, the drives, and the logic, and we kind of step up from there into the space. But to answer your question, Niall, what's the trigger is when you've saturated the value and you now either need to go and hire 20 reliability engineers and data analysts to derive the insights that you feel you should get, or you use the power of cloud and Senseye and its AI.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And yeah, you talked about there, or put very said very well, what's the tipping point? But I guess the next question really is how can the two work in tandem together to produce the results that ultimately you want is scale, high return on investment and quick return on investment? How does that sort of work?
I think the first starting point is understanding what the customer's pain points are. Okay, before you come with a solution, it's very important that you listen and you look for that tipping point. There's no point in pushing a customer to cloud if they can still do everything on-prem. They might just need a smaller edge application, or they might need something smaller. So the first thing that we need to do is sit down with the customer and listen to what those pain points are, and then articulate the value of bringing something else to the table that augments what you are doing on-prem and makes it a more efficient on-prem. So if we look at what Senseye does at scale, so I know we talk about a lot about what Senseye and how it works, but let's just define Senseye in this use case today as a digital reliability engineer. if that's its function in this role. All right. So here you have a digital reliability engineer monitoring your assets 24 hours a day, can move from 500 to 5,000 assets with a very simple graphical user interface. So now what actually happens is you have not changed what you're doing on-prem, but you've gotten the data into Senseye to derive insights that normally the on-prem person would have to do to go and manually analyze all of this stuff. And they'll actually have to go and look at Excels and look at their on-site historians and derive it. But as you bring, say, Senseye to this picture, to this example, Senseye now tells and suggests to the reliability engineer what to focus on, okay, and what to do. So the person on site moves away from trying to work out what's wrong to working out to addressing the actual problems. And so maybe I can just use another simpler example. This we see all the time is for many of our customers, they do vibration and analytics. So for permanent hardwired vibration analytics on site, it's very expensive. So most of our customers only have the hardwired high-speed vibration analytics on their critical assets. And that's usually only about maybe 5 to 10% of their assets at the most. But there's a large amount of assets where they can see the value of doing vibration and analytics on it, but they don't have the budget to go and hardwire everything. So what they will usually do is either go for every 2 months, they'll go do a manual reading, and they will go and save that data, and it'll give them a red, yellow, or green light. But they'll do a snapshot, say every 2, 3, maybe 6 months, and then they'll work off that data. But that's still very reactive. So what a customer might do then on-prem is that they might go and install some IoT sensors that can send them alarms when it's over a certain point. But all of that is still reactive. Okay. So if we look at the role of one vibration engineer on site, imagine going to work and having to go and manually test 50 assets. The value that you can actually derive out of your own value is very limited. So what we suggest is for those critical assets, still stick to on-prem high-speed analytics. Stick to that. We won't. We'll always suggest you that. But for the 80% rule, let's go put in an IoT sensor that's not going to give you your spectrum analysis. It's just going to give you your average acceleration over a short period of time, because all that we really care about is the deviation from what it has been doing over the last couple of days or weeks. And so here we have a situation of where on-prem, we can do this high-speed analytics, and we can, using spectrum analysis and FFT, we can go and work out, is it the bolt? Is it a loose flange? Do I have a broken rotor bar? We can do that. But that should not be all that we do. We need to do both. We now need to go, okay, that's important, but let's bring 80% of the data into cloud, and let cloud go and let Senseye tell me when to go and do those inspections, as opposed to a blind 2-month, 3-month snapshot in time as to how that machine is performing. So this is a very good example, but it can be vibration, can be current, voltage, it can be anything. It depends what you are trying to identify. If you need high-speed analytics, that happens on-prem. So as I said, if it's vibration, spectrum analysis, keep that on-prem. If you want to look for monitor a large drive or some application, that you need to know in a millisecond range when there's a deviation and then there's an anomaly, keep that on-prem. But that usually is only 8 to 10% of assets, critical assets of the customers. We need to take care of that rest. So when you bring the data into cloud now, this is lower resolution. This is not going to be your millisecond times. Since I can do VA in cloud, it's kind of a new feature, but by default, I still strongly recommend get an IoT vibration sensor in, get a deviation from the norm, let that be your trigger to when to go and interfere. And what Senseye is looking at is it's looking at the average deviation over an hour period, and then puts that into its measurements. So it's really looking for long-term forecasting. On-prem, you're not going to forecast 6 weeks into the future with 10 milliseconds time slice of data. That's the on-prem analytics is more around immediate mission critical stuff. But with Senseye, we look at the long term, longer picture. And when you combine these two, so my takeaway here is I will always exhaust everything that a customer is doing on-prem, leverage all of the power of what they've done, and then using some data aggregation, let's get that into Senseye, and then let's let the two complement each other. And when you bring these two together, when you and you don't think that on-prem processing is better or worse, it's just it's the combination of these two that you end up with a real powerful synergy there.
Yeah, and it's interesting because thanks for giving those sort of examples of when best to use on-premise versus cloud. Because what I was wondering is, when you're sort of speaking to different customers and different organisations, does it become a bit more tribal than that? They're not thinking the nuances of this use case is best for this, whereas this one's best for this. It's a black and white on-premise, or cloud, and that's the decision. I'm just wondering whether it generally or maybe starts off being a very black and white type conversation, and I guess to link to that as well, when security and data ownership and things like that come into play at the same time, which adds the complexity to those conversations, I'd imagine.
Yeah, definitely. So, and these two go hand in hand. So, firstly, you need to talk about the value. So any customer that wants to take their data out of the OT environment, definitely needs to be rest assured that their data is going to be treated safely, securely, and Senseye does a very good job in demonstrating their security out of the box. It's very much a part of the onboarding, and that is certainly one of the biggest challenges customers have is breaking through from OT to IT, is feeling that their data is going and they're losing their IP, there's data sovereignty. There are many factors around cybersecurity. So the only way you get a customer to look at the benefits of getting the data into the IT environment is by the value, is by demonstrating what we can actually do. It's the same thing that kind of killed CDs. If we look at what iTunes did in the very early days, where they released a digital single where you could just buy one song, and you didn't have to buy the whole CD anymore, where you had 15 songs that you didn't really want, and this is a very good example of where that value far outweighed the what we were doing previously. It's the same in banking. If we look at how we bank today, and you look at how much money you actually have, it's all digital. And it's because the banking sector have basically um, shown us a better way and an easier way of handling our money. Imagine if we were still trying to keep our money on prem, keeping it under the bed and doing cash. Maybe that works for some, but um, when it comes to industrial, we face the same challenges. But it's not just about the data; it's about intellectual property. We must never forget that our customers are doing amazing things. They're spending a lot of time coming up with things that humanity needs, and there's a lot of intellectual property in that, and we need to respect that. And you need to um, really understand the customer's pain points there. So we have many ways of getting the data out. But firstly, is from a Senseye point of view, we demonstrate our certification and definitely show that the data is safe and secure. But the next part about it is the why behind it. And usually the people that can see the value in a cloud application are not so much the people that are doing the processing and the coding on prem. They are usually different people. It's the whole IT OT thing. If you look at a PLC engineer versus a computer programmer, they do the same thing in a different way, but they think completely different. I find this amazing, just when it comes to these different approaches. But just back to the point of, what is the best? There isn't one. It's really understanding what works for the customer and then bringing that back to what we need to do at high speed and what we can do at long time forecasting.
That's it's really interesting. I mean, I guess my question is, because like I said before, at the start of the question, it was it can be very tribal, cloud or on premises. It can sometimes not be a discussion about a hybrid approach. But do you see this sort of hybrid architecture you've described today, Richard, becoming more of the norm? Versus it being has to be one or the other. But do you see it? Maybe the mentality shifting away to something a more hybrid approach, or does it have to go that way? I guess is another way to ask the question.
Noel, I would love to say yes. Okay, I would love to say to you, yes. Industry is really picking up on the importance of on the value of what cloud brings to their analytics, but we've got a long way to go. Okay, we're in a very when we talk about security and we talk about this data, there's a lot of apprehension in making this step. It's not so much a challenge for our bigger customers that already have an IT infrastructure networking across their sites. All right, so for them, it's not so much of a challenge because they've already put safeguards in place to protect their data. It's usually when we are talking to a new customer that is not networked to other sites. That's usually when the challenge comes in. But to your question, I don't know if it's tribal. It's more a human nature thing about why should I do something different, and the only way that we change our behavior is until we see the value. And I've seen a lot of change in the possibility of moving your data into cloud, but we're not seeing that in a physical metric that I can measure. Most customers, we really have to talk around the importance of security and then the value that you get out of Senseye. And maybe I just need to spend just 2 minutes, and maybe I didn't articulate this one very well, is when we talk about the power of cloud is versus on-prem, what we see every day is that on-prem, we come up with solutions, we code, and everybody goes home, and 6 months later, it's outdated. So the whole thing about firmware updates, code, patching, all of this is becoming a nightmare on-prem because you can go and implement a solution today on-prem, but yeah, it becomes obsolete very, very quickly. And it takes a lot of effort to maintain an edge platform as opposed to a cloud solution. So if I just take Senseye, for example, if I look at how fast and how quick Senseye has developed its application in the last 6 months, if you just have to look at the release notes, if you look at how much more features have been added and how much more value was created using the same platform, unbeknown to a customer because they don't have to go do a firmware update. It's all part of the package. So this is what happens when you go onto cloud. You get this high-speed deployment. You are able to pivot very, very quickly, and you are able to basically provide different versions and upgrades a lot quicker. And one of the things I actually love about Senseye is how they engage their customers on product update calls. So it's quite normal for Senseye to sit down with particular customers and talk about product updates and also listen to the customer as to what they want to provide as feedback. And so that closed loop of functionality to execution can only be done in cloud, and that's the real power of it. So I think we've all seen how fast AI is moving, and who knows what tomorrow brings. And so this is all about future-proofing yourself. You can stay on-prem, that's okay, but you are going to limit yourself in functionality. You're going to limit yourself in the being agile and being able to pivot. So keep some stuff on-prem, keep some stuff on cloud, and the power sits in the middle, and the value sits in the middle now.
Yeah, and that's really interesting because I was, as we come towards the end, I was going to, as I normally do, as you know, on these podcasts, just ask you to summarize some sort of key takeaways, for companies looking to maybe approach this, this hybrid approach. But actually, I think in your answer there, you've probably summarized it quite well. But is there anything else you'd like to add, on top of that you may miss, just for people to start thinking about today, if this is something that really interests them and they want to pursue?
Yeah. Look, when it comes to on-prem or cloud, this is not black or white. All right. If you had to ask me, well, what's the best, it's actually the gray, because when you combine the power of on-prem and its value add and cloud, you end up with this really powerful solution. And all I ask is that that when a customer is looking for something, keep an open mind and entertain the value and the power of both. Okay, and it's very hard for traditional automation and control engineers because they have to relinquish a lot of the logic and brain power that they've put into making something safe, secure, and predicted at an edge level. So there's a lot of value in both. So all I wanted to maybe finish with was open mind, leverage the power of both, and you will see great value. If you stick to one, you're going to be restricted, and your roadmap is going to hit a dead end. When you combine both, you really have got a roadmap to be flexible as things change. That's what we want to set ourselves up for, is what's coming, and leverage today's power.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, don't make decisions today which may delay things in future if you do want to sort of scale. Well, yeah, and naturally that should be the pathway they're looking to do. So yeah, really good advice there. But yeah, no, for today, a really interesting conversation, Richard. Like I said, to my knowledge, it's the first time we've sort of covered the two, how we can use cloud and on-premise, and I think you've articulated that really well for the audience as well. So yeah, thank you for sharing your expertise with us.
No problem, Noel. Thank you very much. I'd love to, I don't know if it's possible to put some kind of survey out there and see what actually our customers, what they feel is best for them, on-prem, cloud, or both. I might do something with our customers here in Australia and feed it back to you. And thank you very much for your time today, Noel, and look after yourself.
Yeah, no, thank you. And maybe, to your point about that, maybe we can put something in the show notes, just to, even if you send us a quick email with one line saying, one sentence summarising your sort of thoughts on the episode, that'd be really cool. And we can share our notes on a future episode, I hope, as well. That'd be cool. But yeah, for today, thank you, Richard, again. Hope to have you back on soon. And thank you, everyone out there, for listening, wherever you are in the world. And we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you very much.
Please like and subscribe on all major podcast channels and find out more about Senseye Predictive Maintenance at Siemens.com.